Yeah, let's jump into the game and see what's going on.
That's true. We are back on Hull City, so yay.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on this map at the moment. Cross positions, I love it. Close positions, doesn't sit right with me right now.
We may actually see it the exact same build as we just saw
Cross
Sage do.
positions!
Hooray! So we won't see the exact same build, but we could once again see this early aggression, but we can see how well it affects Terran versus how well it affected Zerg, and as Delphi found out, that early aggression is deadly against Zerg.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't see early expansions on this game, especially in PvT, especially this map, and especially cross positions, something is very, very wrong.
That is true. So, would you like to introduce the players?
Absolutely love to. Playing for what I think is Team Apex, the Red Terran, also known as a Swedish monster, we do have Morrow. And over to the left-hand side, we do have the orange Protoss representing Team Millennium. He is Adelscott. And once again, the map is Hull City. We have seen that the close positions is possible, but thankfully, we're not seeing it on this map. So this is much better in my opinion. We're going to see this map played out to its fullest. We're going to see the fact that you can early expand because, of course, your natural is in your main. You know, we heard you like bases, so we put bases in your bases, etc. And we are going to see the middle of the map come into play as well. We are going to see this Zelnaga Watchtower abused because it does control the entire middle, as you see. And we are going to hopefully see these smoke vents abused as well. We most commonly see these on, you know, in bases, for example, Antigua Shipyard, etc., etc. But this is the first time they've kind of been brought out into, you know, the main kind of focal point of a map, I believe.
I do believe that is right. I think the other maps that we can point out that include that would be Antigua Shipyard. In the center, it has its own central Zelnaga Tower with those vents in order to protect it from the majority of the view. But apart from that, I do believe you're right. There may be a couple other exceptions, but as a rule, you are correct.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I'm not an expert on, you know, every single Blizzard map that's ever come out, but you know, I can kind of maybe memorize some of the more popular ones, and I believe this is the first time this has kind of been used. I believe the only time it was used was that very awful two-player map that had bushes in the middle. Very, very old map. Steps of War?
Oh, I remember that map.
Yeah, I believe that was
I
the only
remember
other
that
time,
map.
and the other time that it was kind of used in that way, but we're not seeing these early expansions, which I thought, I mean, you know, Adele's going for that kind of very, very common one-gate expansion, and again, Morrow doing the kind of very common, you know, one-racks expansion. I almost expected CC first and, you know, Nexus first out of these two. Both viable builds in the current game. Maybe I'm just completely mistaken about the Heart of the Swarm early game meta in PvT.
Well, the majority of the Heart of the Swarm, like, we were talking earlier about the matches we have played on Heart of the Swarm, and I was cheesed by 2 racks. And I believe you had a similar experience, am I right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, my first Heart of the Swarm game was played today. I am a Master Zerg, and I did go kind of against a bronze, silvery kind of player. So, you know, 12-minute hive, and I kind of forgot about any Heart of the Swarm units. So that was a lot of fun. We are seeing an NG Bay block, but the Mothership Core is actually doing a fairly good job at just kind of prodding, and the Stalker's there as well. The Mothership Core only does 8 damage, which is a little bit strange. He's expected to do just
that's strange because it has such a plethora of abilities, and because it's such an early game unit, it is meant to be a support unit. It's not meant to be a powerhouse. If it did more damage, it would be overpowered.
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with you there, Chris. But 8 damage just seems a little bit low, but I suppose its attack speed is very, very high. So, you know, adding this Mothership Core as early as possible, let it gather that energy, you know, let you use these kind of early game abilities is definitely something that Protoss should be aiming to do. The Mothership Core should almost be the first thing you spend gas on, apart from, of course, Warp Gate. Maybe sometimes, you know, it definitely is the first game, but we're seeing a Stalker run up again into the bunker. This is a very similar situation, and the only difference we're going to see is the fact that this Mothership Core is coming along for the ride. It does currently have 100 energy, so it can use its abilities, of course, Energize, Purify. We're probably going to see the Purify ability some point in this game when the Terran attacks. So far, we haven't actually seen anyone lay aggression to a Protoss player.
I really like this. What Adel
is
used the bubble chip for as the high ground vision, and is going to focus down this refinery here. And I can hear a Widowmine somewhere, but he's moved out of range. Widowmine's trying to move in range. And he's going to try and focus it down, but it's not getting the shots off. Adel just microing out of the way, Marines moving in. This Mumship, of course, is going to have to get out of there, or it's going to be focused down by these Marines. Oh, it does take a bit of health damage, but it will get out of there alive. And these Stalkers need to move back before they do get focused down. Now that they have lost their high ground vision, we're seeing an Observer on the way to continue to give that high ground vision, while Adelscott continues to micro up. The Widowmine moves forward, forcing those Stalkers to get out of there as quick as possible. And this is really good. This is really good early game defense here out of Morrow.
Yeah, this is exactly kind of the changes in metagame. Now Terrans can't sit behind bunkers because, you know, the Protoss can just use the high ground vision, especially on maps where, you know, the cliffs are very, very close to kind of a vital structure like your gas. If you lose a gas early on, it sets your build back a good 30 seconds. And of course, now that Morrow is getting the factory out and getting siege tanks, we're probably going to see mech versus Protoss, and that is very, very, very new.
That is true. We are seeing Blink and Immortals on the way for Adel, so Adel may actually be seeing this coming.
Yeah, I mean, you can, you know, we've already established that Morrow absolutely loves Widowmines, and, you know, to combat Widowmines, you do need a robotics facility. There's kind of no way about not doing that. I mean, you can sacrifice Zealots to absorb some hits, but in the long term, those Widowmines are just going to stay down. We are seeing you know, 2 more factories coming on the way, so we are going to see mech. But right now, Morrow, for some reason, is just keeping back, holding back, using this Widowmine for, you know, that kind of ramp blocking, and then using the tanks to kind of spot anything that's coming up the ramp as well. So that's going to be some really difficult ramp to break. But we do see Immortals being produced. The Widowmine is not in range just yet, but those tanks are able to hit the bottom of the ramp. So yeah, Morrow's in such a great position right now.
Indeed, really good early game defense by him. And what Adelscott was planning there was to use the Observer to kill off that Widowmine. However, as you did just say, perfect positioning from those tanks enabled to stop Adel from getting that shot off. So this is really good. And also, if Morrow decides to deploy this Widowmine here, it may kill the Observer, and the Observer has got out of there.
Oh yeah, so because Widowmines auto-target cloak, don't they?
They do, absolutely, and it's just chilling up on the top of the ramp now, but Del being really, really careful, making sure he stays out of any possible range. And where did that Hellion take damage?
It looks like it might have scouted the ramp of Adelscott, and of course it did manage to get away. The Observer floating about, but Observers need to be just that little bit more careful now, because if it runs into the range of a Widowmine, if you're not paying attention to it, of course the Observer's observe range is 11, while the Widowmine's range is only 5. But again, if you're just not taking care of it, you're just going to lose them all the time. And you know, as you may or may not know, Observers play a massive, massive role in PvT. But this is the first time I'm going to ever see mech in PvT, so this is very, very interesting.
I couldn't agree more. We're going to see some Hellions move out, but they're going to run straight into this army, moving out across the map for Adelscott and be annihilated. They will actually get around this, so we have to hope there's something at home for Adelscott to help defend this, while Morrow, his hopes are lying on this very tough-looking wall. He has stuff that he needs, and oh my god, blinking into the main! The siege tank is not ready yet. It has siege up, it does get a shot off. The Widowmine gets focused down. It did also manage to get a shot off, but everything is still alive. The Hellion is chilling at the moment. We're seeing the tanks moving back into the main to try and deal with this. They're trapped by the supply depots right now. Stalker's doing so much damage, but they just blink out of there as the tanks siege up. That was great harassment there by Adelscott, and we're seeing 2 more Widowmines on the way to try and help defend against this.
Yeah, well, as I said before, the Widowmines do auto-target the invisible units, so, you know, Morrow could use the combination of turrets, Widowmines to stop these Observers and stop the, but never mind, he's using the Viking and the Scan, just like old times, eh, Morrow? So yeah, he could have used the turrets and the Widowmine combined together to stop Stalkers blinking into his base. And again, that's an interesting change. But we do see 4 Immortals, and these Immortals are going to do such a good job at taking tank shots. But of course, behind that... Yeah, exactly. Behind that, we do have 2 bunkers, a lot of supply depots that are going to limit the amount of space that Adelscott can abuse, and there's a lot of tanks. So, you know, and Morrow, of course, now does have 3 mining bases as well. So the longer Adelscott leaves this, the worse it gets. But, of course, you know, he's moving in now, and Chris...
Going in, we're going to see the blink onto the tanks as soon as he gets in range. He's shuffling forward, he has the motion call. There's the blink onto the tanks. Everything's decimated. We're seeing SCVs being pulled in order to try and help defend us. There's so many units left for Adelscott. Everything is dying. The Immortals are standing tall. Not shuffling their way in. There's a tank on the high ground, but so is Adelscott. A GG by Morrow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What can you say about that ending? It almost seemed like it was going to go into a long game. You know, that attack would have worked kind of a little bit of an attack would have worked. You know, he kind of poked forward, maybe brought himself back, but wow, I mean, he busted down the front. The Immortals took the tank shots, and then he just blinked on top of the tanks. And Mech in the early stages of the game is just not good in, you know, in ZVT. We usually see, you know, the Mech play, but apparently Mech in the early game of TVP is not all that great either. So we're gonna see.
We are seeing that very similar. This is why you don't go Mech in Wings of Liberty.